All right, recording is going.
Perfect. And if I can have others monitor any questions, I'd appreciate that. So thank you everyone for coming today. Appreciate it. We're here today to look at, not the thing I wanted to click on there. We're looking at alternative assessments for ideas for finals and beyond. So last week, Dr. Kim Stokes, she took us through information about getting us ready for the upcoming finals and how things are a little different this time, obviously around with courses being planned for face-to-face tests and regular situation. And so how do we adapt to that? What are some of the guidelines we've been given? And so with that in mind, building off of her work last week, so we want to talk this week about how do we create maybe alternative assessments outside of the normal multiple choice tests we might give. How can we adapt some of those or go with something else entirely different? But starting now, giving faculty the time to be able to think about how can they do this. And that not everything works for everyone, but if there's something where you think, oh, okay, that might work for me, that's something then you can reach out to us and be able to talk to us more about. And we can be able to discuss that. We have plenty of people here in our center who are very happy to show some of the tools that CougarView can use for this or other means or ways of doing this. So some of the things that we're going to look at today are based in CougarView, but they're not maybe the usual tools. Other things on here are different approaches or maybe ways of thinking about this that you haven't before. Okay. So we're going to start off here. We're going to first look at examples of alternative assessments. And some of these may be ones that you've experienced before or that you've given before, but maybe in a not the same way. Again, this time thinking about how to use some of the CougarView tools for them, since you can't be face to face. Maybe you can't have the student turn in a paper to you, but what are other ways to do it? Also, then after that, we're going to look at how to assess or grade these assignments. They take maybe a different approach on some things, especially artifacts or presentations, things like that. And then we're going to look at some tech tools for these assessments. And we're not going to look at everything. There's too many possibilities here. Everyone's got their app that they maybe prefer. But so we're going to look at just a handful, especially here that we have through CougarView or through MyCSU, different tools through Google Suite, things like that. Okay. And if at different points, if you have a question about what we're talking about at the moment, please let us know. Otherwise, we will be happy to take questions at the end. If you have questions about a specific type of assignment or maybe one that you're looking at, maybe hold those to the end. But if there's something that we're looking at the moment and you'd like to know more about, please let us know. So just a few examples here. We're going to the first couple of slides. Looking at add-ons to multiple choice quiz. So let's say you're still doing a multiple choice quiz or test. What are some other things that you could add on that would, for purposes of both test security, but as other ways of assessing students' understanding of things? For those of you who are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy of learning, you know that there are different levels of learning. And lots of times when we're given a multiple choice quiz or test, we're assessing students' level of memory, their ability to remember something or recall something. And so that can be good. There are other ways to do some of those things as well, such as requiring them to remember, or instead of saying, okay, pick out of these 4 items, which one is correct. In this case, you could be able to say, all right, what is the name of this thing here? Insert the name. Okay, give us, in CougarView with quizzes, you can be able to require that they give a short answer to provide the name. So it's not just randomly them being able to guess the correct answer, but actually have to remember the answer themselves. And another way of being able to assess further through a CougarView quiz is through an essay question. Now, this could be a very short answer. This doesn't, lots of times we think of an essay, it could be something very long. And indeed, if you wanted to, you could have your entire test be, you give them the essay question and they have to write and respond to that prompt. But this could also be as an add-on to a multiple choice quiz that you give them a couple of prompts at the end of the questions to maybe highlight a certain area that you're focusing on more in the curriculum, and be able to go in depth and have them explain that more, so that it's not just about were they able to guess right some multiple choice questions, but also how well are they able to explain some concepts and be able to help further develop ideas maybe that were looked at. Wanted to bring up something, and this is a resource from Rutgers. This is information here. There's a website that Rutgers has. Kyle. Rutgers University has a website that has information on alternative websites, and I'm going to bring that up here. Please let me know if you can see this now. But they have some information here on alternative forms, but also on some information or ideas for quantitative courses. And so some of these here, just bring it up again, if you were doing a quiz or some other items, or some other test, and you wanted to think about this a little differently, since you can't be there with them, and we're not doing regular proctoring services as we might otherwise do. So as it points out here, ask more conceptual questions. Such as, what is the next step in this problem, or state the definition, or explain why this hypothesis is the theorem and the theorem is necessary. So again, not just having quantitative questions, but maybe then adding some essay questions here, some short essay questions, which is demonstrating to you as the faculty member that they're not just getting this, like from a website or something, if that were a concern, but that they actually understand the principles behind this as well, that they can describe those and explain these concepts. Next bullet point says, ask students to identify an error in a proof or computation. As it points out, this is particularly effective since it can't be Googled. This is something now where they're having to be able to go in and recognize and truly understand the concepts here of, if you give them the entire problem as well as the proof for it, and they have to explain what's wrong with that. Eliminate multiple choice fill-in questions, like we've talked about here, in favor of show all work questions. And we're going to look here in another minute at some possible ways to do that. But so we've been working with some faculty where one faculty member, he is going to be using video, having students film themselves as they explain the answers to questions that they're answering, and then they're going to submit those answers, and he's going to be using a rubric to assess them on not just if it's the correct answer, but how well did they explain it, how well do they demonstrate the concept. Other possibilities here of using problems from a textbook, ways to change things around there, changing not only the numbers but also the names, other things like that. When randomizing the exam, don't just randomize the numbers, but other portions of it as well. And as the last bullet point points out, avoid questions that consist of only simple computations. And so we've looked at some examples or ways of doing that here already. And this website is going to be, this link is going to be shared as part of the Google Sites page that we in the Center of Online Learning are about to unveil. And for resources for a number of different topics, but in this case it will be for assessment. And so this will be available to people afterwards. So this is more in line here with still in a regular multiple choice test, add-ons or other ways of looking at some of what we're doing there, and alternative ways of doing that and adapting that. Let's go to a couple of other ideas here. First is presentations, and this could, whether it's individual or a group. Okay. Now we have plenty of faculty who have approached us recently. Well, I should say, virtually approached us and said, "How can I do my group presentation?" Or "Here's what I usually do in my class." And so we're working with them on some different ideas. But this can be a great way of, instead of having a regular multiple choice test of 50 questions or whatever at the end, instead in this case, give your students the opportunity to maybe demonstrate something or to explain a concept. This can be a good way for them to be able to maybe demonstrate the principle or demonstrate what they've been learning. For Bloom's taxonomy, of learning, this would be more along the lines of applying in some cases if they're demonstrating the actual thing. So they could be able to use a camera like on their phone and be able to record themselves. We'll talk again more about that in a moment, but demonstrating what they're doing or explaining a concept, so they could be able to kind of TED Talk style, or I should say Khan Academy style maybe, be able to give the explanation themselves, be able to show you as a faculty member that they understand what they're talking about. And then also final project or artifact, especially for real world application. Again, along the lines of application for Bloom's taxonomy of learning, that they are creating something that goes along with the topics that they're learning about. And if, for example, in the summertime, they probably don't have time for this now for finals, but using a portfolio is something that you can consider when during the semester having them create different artifacts or different demonstrations of their learning, that by the end that can be something that is then submitted as their final project of some kind. And so there's a lot of different possibilities here. If you're thinking about let's say if you're in economics, if you're teaching in that field, students could be able to submit to you a report, which would be like if a regular economist were looking at current conditions. For example, you could ask them to do something on the effects that COVID-19 is having on the economy currently, and be able to have them do a write-up on that. This could be something where you have them create a poster of some kind online and you have them submit that. There's a lot of different images and different ways of doing that through PowerPoints, through creating different images on slides, being able to create a graphic. So there's a lot of different real-world applications that students could be able to complete to demonstrate this knowledge as well. So now let's look at how to assess. Since it's not just, the beautiful thing about a 50 question multiple choice quiz or test is, especially if you're doing it in Cougar things like that, it can be graded automatically. Whereas here, for some of these kinds of assessments, it may take a little longer to do. But especially with finals week, as I was working with one faculty member, we were looking at the number of days involved, or the number of days during finals week, and then therefore what does that mean for the time that a faculty member has to assess that. If planned well, planned accordingly, again, you may not be able to assess something for all 50, what you would normally do with 50 questions, but you can be able to have a greater depth of demonstration of knowledge. And so one of the ways that you can be able to assess things here with these kinds of alternative assignments, such as with a project or a presentation, or also an essay, is a rubric. And so, for example, we have information on rubrics and assignments in CougarView. Let me go ahead and share some of that in here. So if you were to be in CougarView and you were to go to an assessment, or if you were to go up to assessments and you come down to assignments, then you can be able to go into any of the assignments you've created, and you could be able to create an essay assignment. And I've already gone and actually forgot to do this one step back, but actually here, let me show you here. So now I'm here in assignments in CougarView. Okay, and I want to edit this assignment. I want to create a rubric. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but I want to give you an idea here of what can be done. So if we come down, okay, down here we see rubrics, okay, and I can either add a rubric that I've previously created, which I don't have any right here, or I can create a rubric in a new window, okay. And what a rubric is nice for those who are not familiar with it, a rubric is a way of being able to choose different criteria, as it says here, criterion 1, criterion 2, what are the main things that I'm looking for? So for example, let's say I'm having students give a presentation on a certain topic. I can be able to assess them on did they include in certain information or how well they described a certain topic. I can be able to assess how many points they made about that topic. I can be able to also assess the length of time that they described it. There's a lot of different aspects to it. And if you search online for rubrics, just as ideas, you will get a mountain of different resources of ways to do this. But so you can be able to have the different criteria, as you see here, criterion 1, 2, and 3, and then you can also be able to rate those. So for example, here, points 4, 3, 2, or 1, 4 points being the highest, and then also initial feedback. So you can be able to give feedback as a rating system. You can have a rating system for each of these different criteria. Okay, so a lot of different possibilities there. And here in Cougar View, this is on our website, for the Center of Online Learning, you have the Cougar View instructor guides, and we have guides here for a number of different topics, including for rubrics. And so you can be able to find out a lot of information here about how to create a rubric within Brightspace. You also, of course, can reach out to us in the Center of Online Learning. But for those who are inclined to just get in there and start playing around with things and start trying things, there's a number of different resources here as well. Any questions there so far about rubrics or anything like that? If not, I'll go on. And I should also mention too that since, if you were doing this for your first time, you don't need to make it too complicated. This is, you don't have to feel like you're a seasoned pro at creating rubrics or anything like that. Again, there might be a great rubric that's already out there that someone's created and is sharing for free, and that might be something that either works perfectly for you, or as is more common, and I found in my own teaching, I usually have to adapt something like that. But there's often a great example out there of what you might be wanting to start from anyway. Okay. The next 2 points here. First, self-review. And this is something, these next 2 here are ones that you can reach out especially to Susan Rock, who is the head of the faculty for Center for Faculty Learning here at CSU. And that she is a very big proponent of a lot of these here. First is self-review. It gives the opportunity for students to self-reflect on the work that they've created, whether on an essay or some other type of artifact or product, to be able to gives them an opportunity to tell you what did they learn in the process, or how well did they do. And as Susan's pointed out to us, the students are actually much harder on themselves than you might think. This gives them an opportunity for reflection, which is a really powerful tool in learning, and just being able to think about what have they accomplished, what more was there that they would like to have learned about with in creation of the tool or the product, whatever it might be. And this is another one again where there are many different examples of self-reflection or self-review that you can find online. This can be done in a number of different ways, but so just even having some questions for students to think about. And so this may not be the only way that you give them a grade based off of this, but it could be a portion of it in them telling you what they've learned in the process for this. Also related to this is peer review. And peer review is something that I really like. Is there some I hear some comments? Can someone else maybe let me know if are there any questions? Okay. If not, I'll keep going. But peer review it can be challenging, but it can also be very rewarding as a way of being able to assist you actually as the faculty member with your work in this. So this can be something where you assign students, for example, an essay or something like that, and then you're going to give either the questions that the peer needs to look at, or maybe the rubric, but you're going to give them some guidance, and then they are going to be able to review their peer's artifact or their essay or whatever it might be. And the key here again is that guidance. If they don't know what they're looking for, then it can be something where they're confused, and maybe they give feedback that the person who submitted the assignment doesn't fully understand. But if you give them a model, for example, of what they need to do, then peer review can be a very powerful way of being able to have your students learn from not just creating the item themselves, but also then reviewing someone else's and being able to give feedback to someone else. And so those are additional ways that you can be able to assess these tools. And so, for example, if you were using a rubric, when you were going to assess it, you were going to give them a score based off of the self-review and also maybe the peer review. These kind of 3 different points here, kind of triangulation of data, as we might look at with qualitative research, these become very helpful ways for both you to assess them, but also for the learner to get good feedback and reflect on what it is that they might have learned on just that assignment or throughout the semester. Any questions here before we go on about assessment here, as far as actually assessing these kinds of products or assignments? Okay. Some things to think about here with, now how do we actually do these? This is a different environment for a lot of people. For both faculty, this can be new and challenging. For students, this can be new and challenging. And so what are some of the ways that what are some of the tools that might help us here? So with, for obviously we talked a little bit about using CougarView, which we highly encourage people to be using the tools that are already there. And so you can reach out to the Center of Online Learning. We can help you with those. We can point you into a lot of different resources and also be able to help you with whatever type of final assessment you might be working on, or if it's for the summer, be able to help you prepare for those as well. But let's say you're trying to do something a little different outside of just maybe an assignment there, or with the quiz tool, or even if you are, if you need some additional things here, such as recording. So let's say you want to have your students do a presentation of some kind. There's a few different ways that you might be able to do this, whether for individually or as a group. If you want them to just present to maybe just you, the instructor, and no one else. Obviously, there's a lot of web conferencing tools that we can be able to use for this. Right now, we're doing this recording through Collaborate Ultra, and that's something you already have in your courses. And so if you have questions about how to use this, you can reach out to us. There's information about using Collaborate Ultra in your CougarView Quick Start course that you have available to you. There's other tools. Obviously, many people are familiar now with Zoom and with Microsoft Teams or with Google Hangouts. But being able to do this where you maybe schedule a time during that week to have your students present, that can be something then where they meet you in these web conferencing tools, and they're able to share their screen and they're able to present to you in that way. And so that's, of course, one way to do this by distance, just as we're meeting right now and I'm sharing with you these slides. If it's something where you just want them to be able to submit the video and you're going to watch it later. So depending upon the type of presentation or what you want them to do, it could be as simple as they use their smartphone to be able to make a recording. I understand that not everyone has a smartphone, but many do, and this is one good way of being able to do this. And so let's say you are working with, or you're in a course where you want them to be able to show their work as they're submitting a problem, or they're completing problems. You want them to show their work. This can be something where maybe you have them take a picture of the work, but also you can have them recording their work itself as they're doing it. So then you could be able to take a picture, you could be able to look at the image of the work that they've completed by hand, and also be able to have a video of them completing it. This could be one way where, as I'm working with one faculty member, he is going to have his students record themselves as they are completing certain problems, and they're going to explain during the course of that how, or like explain their thinking. Why is it that they decide, how is it they came to a certain answer? And so that will give the faculty member not only, will help them to know not only if they got the right answer, but why. This faculty member wants to be able to give partial credit for their thinking, for the work that they did in the process. And so this recording, this will give the faculty member that opportunity to see not only the right answer, which he might have been able to get in a quiz in CougarView, but also a chance to be able to demonstrate learning and demonstrate understanding of the process in general. So other ways to do this here, and you could still do that where maybe they're on camera, maybe they themselves are on camera, maybe they're not. The work could just be, the phone could just be focusing on, or whatever camera could be just focusing on the work. If you wanted them to be able to create something like a PowerPoint presentation, then you could do a screen recording or a screen capture. And there are a number of different tools and ways to do this. Okay, and this is something to reach out to us. I should mention this. This will be affected. How you do this will depend somewhat on, are you wanting them to just send this to you, or are you wanting this to also be shared with other students? There's some guidelines we should give on that as well. If this is just something that you want them to record and send to you, then that can be done in a lot of different ways. There can be screen capture, or if it's a PowerPoint presentation, they could just record their audio through PowerPoint itself. There are settings for doing that. You could be able to have them do a screen recording with a lot of different tools, such as if they have a Mac, QuickTime allows them to do a screen recording. There's other tools such as one software application called Loom. Another is called Screencast-O-Matic. Screencast-O-Matic is what I often use in my videos that I'm creating. And from there, they can make the recording, and then they can either upload to some of these services such as Loom or Screencast-O-Matic, or they can just record the video and have it saved onto their computer. And then they can be able to, I'll mention here in a moment, but they can be able to upload it to Google Drive and share it with you that way. So there's a number of different tools and ways, and all these are free. There are others that can be paid for, or higher levels of them that can be paid for, but these are all different ways of doing this for free. Screencast-O-Matic, for example, gives you up to 15 minutes of free video. For each video can be up to 15 minutes for free. Loom has, I do not think it has a limit, and there are other services as well. So there's a lot of good ways to do this. Any questions there? Heard a pop? No caption? Nothing? No question? Okay. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to have students then actually record, whether it's a presentation or demonstrating their work or anything like that. Then to be able to actually submit and share this video, it depends on what you're wanting them to do. If you just want to have the presentation where just you as the faculty member view the presentation or you hear it, they can simply submit a link to you in, like, say, an assignments page in Cougar View, where you set up the assignment, and then they include just that link, and you can be able to access it that way. So maybe they upload a video to their own Google Drive, and then they share that with you. That's one way to do that. As I mentioned, some of those other services, such as Screencast-O-Matic, you can be able to have the link created from those, and then share it with the faculty member, and so that the only person who's expected to watch the video will be the faculty member. You can also upload videos to YouTube. Each person here at CSU, through My CSU and the Google Suite, they have a YouTube account. Now this is particularly important for if this is going to be a presentation where it's going to be shared, it's supposed to be shared maybe with other students. We've been advised that in our center that if it's video that's going to be shared with others, just as when we encourage faculty members to create videos in My Media and then have them request captioning for them, if possible, we need students to have, and any videos that they're going to share with others should be captioned as well, if possible. And so one way to do this is for students to be able to upload their videos into their YouTube account. And I've done this with videos as well. You can upload them there, and then you can click to have the automatic captioning done for the videos. Now, the automatic captioning by itself is not considered sufficient or considered sufficiently precise to be accessible, but you can also be able to have students go in and take a few minutes and be able to then edit the captions that are created. I've done this for videos that I've made, and it usually takes about 5 minutes of editing for each minute of recording. So for example, let's say they have a 5-minute presentation, then you're going to be having about 25 to 30 minutes of editing. but being able to do that adds that level of accessibility to the presentation and makes it that much more worthwhile. One idea that we're trying with one faculty member is she's going to be having group presentations. And so she's having the students create a playlist. And so different students in a group are going to create a different part of the video. And so they will do their portions of things and then share that to the playlist. The playlist will then be shared possibly in a discussion board for the other students, so that there will still be able to be both group presentations and feedback from the other students, because the other students will be able to watch their videos and be able to comment on them. And so in that way, it's still able to give that class the opportunity to see the presentations of other students and be able to get discussion going on them. So, and it's thinking outside the box a little bit here in a lot of different ways. That faculty member is trying to see how can she be able to do the things that she wants to for her students in another environment. And so really applaud her, and also the other faculty out there who are thinking differently about a lot of these things here. We're actually going to have, we're looking at having again with Susan Rock's help in the faculty center, we're looking, and also with Mariko Zumi in the QEP, we're looking at reaching out to different faculty and finding out what are some of their ideas and different ways of being able to give alternative assessments here. Some things that maybe they've tried before, some things that they're going to be trying this semester, so that we can give faculty an idea of what are different ways that they can do this and be able to showcase what it is that your colleagues are doing. And we're very excited about that. There's a lot of great ideas here. These are, like I mentioned earlier, this is just kind of touching the just barely skimming the surface, or touching, looking at the tip of the iceberg as to what faculty can do. It depends upon your discipline. It depends upon the level of the course, and a lot of different things. But there's so many great ways to be able to assess what your students are doing. And so we're looking forward to hearing from others about that. So, any questions here? Or I guess really actually just any questions at this point in the presentation, since that's the main information I wanted to share for today. But anything that people are wondering? I don't hear anything so far. So if there's any other comments or anything else that people would like to know, we'd like to open the floor up, or if there are any thoughts someone has. If not, if there are things that people came forward with questions about other topics, feel free to, we'll go ahead and maybe stop the recording, and